Hey everyone, my name is Kestrel Michaud. I am an art quilter and I live in Melbourne, Florida. And today I'm partnering with MoxieBox to bring you this project. We are going to be making a simple flower arrangement out of fabric. On the left side of your screen, you can see what I'm starting with, which is a mat and a backing. So the idea is we're going to build our flower arrangement on this backing, and then we will be using the mat to make sure we end up with good composition that can be framed up in your house when you're all finished up. So step one is that we need to set the stage for our flower arrangement. We need to make the setting. So first we need a backing, and then we'll need a table, and then we'll need a vase. So for the backing, I've got this nice blue fabric, and it's a little bit too big, as you can see. So first thing I'm going to do is trim it down a bit. And let's see, I'm going to put a snip here and then cut all the way across. And since we have the mat, we know that our finished picture is going to be cropped. So I'm going to deliberately cut this blue fabric too big so that it will go all the way edge to edge under the mat. All right, so I've put 2 snips in to mark where this needs to be cut. And I'm just going to cut straight across. Now with my own art quilts, I usually use a fusible, which is a type of heat-sensitive fabric glue. So in other words, I iron my pictures together. But for today's project, we're going to be using a much safer method that doesn't use any heating elements. And we're going to be gluing everything together with a type of fabric glue called liquid stitch. And it comes in a bottle like this. All right, I have trimmed down my fabric. So I'm going to line it up on top of the opening, and then hold the center, and if I lift the mat up and then place it down, that fabric will go right to the back. And what I'm checking is to make sure that it covers all edges. All right, so let's move the mat to the side. And now if I roll the top back like this, I can take my liquid stitch, open up the cap. That came out pretty fast. You don't need quite that much. It's a lot like Elmer's glue, but specifically for fabric. So you'll get an idea of how much you need to put on there. We'll just roll that back in place. And we'll do a little bit down here. It comes out pretty quickly like Elmer's glue too. Right, and there we go. With the mat back in place, here's the fabric I've got for our tabletop, and it's a little bit crooked, so I need to even it out, but I want to cover up about 1/3 of the composition. So we can kind of guesstimate, okay, that's way too much. But if I cut it back to about here, that'll be pretty good. You're going for about 1/4 to 1/3 coverage for the table. So let me try and make a straight line on here. Actually, this side's not, it's not great. Let me cut from this side, and we're gonna try and go straight across. Now, depending on what fabric you're using for your tabletop, this may not be as much of an issue, but this fabric has a definite pattern to it. And it's pretty clear when it's crooked. So I just wanted to clean that up a little bit. Okay, I'll go a little further. It's crooked, so let me straighten it out, and we're almost ready to glue here. Get that fuzz off of there. All right, I'm gonna call that good. So let's put some glue down. And I did see that this mess was hanging off the side. we'll trim that away. And I want to make sure that this top edge is definitely attached. So we're going to put a little bead right across. Just like that. Okay, and now we need to attach this down here, so we're going to do a couple more beads just across like this. You don't need big globs, just a dab will do. And pat that down. Another reason you don't want big globs of glue is because if you push too hard, it'll come right back up through the fabric. And we don't need that. Okay, there we go. So we've got our background, we've got our tabletop. Now we need the vase. And this is the material I've got for my vase. This opening is about 4 by 6. So we want our vase to be about this wide. It's about 2.5 inches, right between my fingers. So what I'm gonna do is draw a shape on the back of this fabric. The reason I'm drawing on the back is because then if I don't cut exactly on the lines, it won't show up on the front. So I'm going to do a nice fat base. Just like that. Okay, so you see how I've kind of drawn this wonky half of a C. Just like that. So what I can do is fold the fabric in half, and then if I cut that shape, it'll cut out the entire vase because I'll actually be cutting 2 layers at once. So that's what I'm gonna do. Fold it just like that. And now I'm gonna cut along my line. Okay, and now when I unfold it, looks pretty good. Let's see if we got the size right. Yeah, that's looking pretty good. I've got my trusty tweezers here, which you don't necessarily have to use, but I'm using because I want to make sure that my fingers aren't covering up what I'm doing here. So that's looking pretty good to me. So before we get that completely glued down, we need a shadow. And so I've got this little strip of black, and I just want to cut a little, like really elongated oval to slip under the base of the vase, and that will give it a shadow. That'll make it look like it's really sitting on the tabletop here. So let's do that now. It's hard to hold on to this. It's so skinny. Okay, there we go. That's pretty good. And we'll tuck that under there. And if you make it off center, that'll look even better. Okay, so that's what I'm thinking, but it's not glued down yet. So that's what we got to do now. So let's fold this back. Let's get a little dab on here, right along the top like that. Looking good. Oops, that came out a little fast. We're going to pat that down. All right. If you're having trouble with the applicator tip of this, you can also use a Q-tip or something like this, which is a disposable makeup applicator, to dab along your fabric. So I'm going to do that for this black piece. I have this little dab of glue on just a scrap paper, and if I dip the applicator into it, I can get a little bit on the tip there. And now I can brush that along this black shadow. It's a little more precise than using the glue. All right, and now so you can see what I'm doing, I'm going to use the tweezers to get this back in place. There we go. Just like that. And once again, I'm going to use the applicator to just get a little bit of glue under the edge of this vase so that it stays attached to the shadow. Just like that. You don't have to be fancy about it. All right. So there's step one. Step two is the leaves and the centers of the flower, because we need to plan out where our flowers are going to go. So let's cut those first. And for my flower centers, I've got this fabric. That grainy, pebbly stuff looked like seeds in the middle of a sunflower, I thought. So what I'm going to need are 3 centers, just circles basically, that are about 1 inch in diameter, and they don't have to be perfect circles. So just do your best to cut some circles. All right, there's one. So let's do a second one. I actually use a machine to cut all of my pieces of fabric for my quilts. I use a Cricut cutting machine, a Cricut Explore Air 2 actually, and it does all of my cutting for me. So this is the first time that I've used scissors to cut fabric in a very long time, actually. I used to cut all of my fabrics by hand, but I was worried about, oh, that one's a little small. That one already, yeah, that's okay. I was worried about developing tendinitis or carpal tunnel or something like that in my early 20s from all of the work that I was doing with my scissors. And so I was delighted to find a machine that would do all my cutting for me. All right, so now we need some leaves. And for leaves, I've got this really pretty print of some birds and birdhouses in a tree. And all I'm gonna do are cut out those leaves. So I'll do a demonstration one, and then I've pre-cut a bunch already so that y'all don't have to sit there waiting for me to cut out all these leaves. So I'm just gonna follow the edge of the print and cut out the leaf exactly as it is here in the fabric. So just like that. And then let's have that pop out like this. Just like that. And then I have all of these other leaves that I've pre-cut. So I'm going to just arrange them around. And we're gonna have some come popping out from up here. Let's see. Here's a good one. Let's put this one up like that. Oh, let's make sure we've got it going under the edge of our mat there. It's always good to have stuff going off the edge. Let's see, we can do a second one over here, just like that. And let's shuffle it off the edge a little bit. Perfect. Let's see. Ooh, here's a double. That's a good one. Let's see, where can I put that? It's kind of going off to, I like it, but maybe we'll do that. Yeah, that's looking pretty good. Under the center. All right. I think I'm gonna leave the leaves there. We can always add more later, but I think that's a good number to start with. And I'm going to move my mat off to the side before I start gluing. So let me get my little makeup applicator, and I'm just gonna swab some glue under the leaves because I don't want to change their position. so I've got some glue on the tip here. Let's start with this one. So I'm gonna kind of hold it in place with one finger and then lift it up and just swab underneath. And this doesn't need to be super precise. We just need a little bit under there to hold it in place. That's good. Don't worry about going all the way to the edge. That's not necessary. And don't connect the circles, our flower centers. We don't want to attach them just yet because we may decide to put the petals underneath. Or we might not. We're going to see how that looks and make a determination once we start getting petals down. So for right now, flower centers need to be loose, but we want to anchor these leaves in place. Put a little dab under there. Pat that down. Almost done. This big guy down here. There, and he's so big that I'm actually going to do a little bit on this side too. So we'll do under just like that. It's really funny. I use more of these disposable makeup applicators in my quilt studio than I do for myself, like to actually put makeup on. I use them to clean my bobbin casings because the bobbin casing gets so much lint in it whenever I'm sewing that I go through quite a few of them in my sewing studio, and I don't wear makeup that often, so I don't use many for myself. All right, last leaf. Let's get that folded back, and we're just gonna swab underneath like that. Good. And a little bit under the tip over here. Good. Poke that in place. All right. Now I did have to move one of those flower centers to keep from getting glue on it. So I'm going to line this back up. I'm going to put this in place. I guess we'll kind of go like that. Where are my tweezers here? It's not moving around quite so nice. Okay. So that was step 2. Getting all those leaves down was step 2. Now, step 3 is the petals. This is what's really going to start adding some fun color to this picture. So for the petals, we have 3 different colors. Well, actually, they're mostly all the same color, but we're going to be making petals from these 3 different fabrics. And the reason we're using 3 different fabrics is so that our petals have variety. It's going to look a lot more interesting if the more fabrics we use. So I like to pick 3 fabrics that are similar but not exactly the same. So I've got an orange, I've got a bright yellowy orange, and then this red that also is a red batik, but it also has yellow and orange mixed in. So having a variety of petals made from these 3 fabrics is going to look awesome. So we got to start cutting our petals. And I'm going to move a couple of these off to the side. I'm going to demonstrate with one fabric. In fact, I'll demonstrate with that batik because I think that's my favorite of these 3. And you have a couple different options when you're cutting out petals, like for shapes. So the first option is to make kind of an elongated teardrop that has a point at the fat end and is just flat on the other side. So instead of going to a point on the skinny side, it's just kind of flat. So it kind of looks like that. Okay, so you could cut all of your petals that look like that. You could also cut your petals so that they just look like an oval. Let's move that to the side and let's do a nice elongated oval here. The choice is really yours. There's no right or wrong way to make flower petals. This fabric's hard to maneuver. All right, and well, our oval kind of got pointy on one side, but that's okay. You can have rounded ovals, you could have pointy ovals. It is totally up to you. And just start cutting. You're gonna need a lot of them. Each of these flowers is gonna use quite a few petals. So just like the leaves, I have pre-cut quite a few petals here just to speed up this video. So I'm gonna show you my little piles of petals that I've got. I'll just set them onto the side here so that you can see. I've got about 30, I think 30 petals of each fabric. So I've got my little petal stacks here, and then these are the two that I just cut, and I tend to cut my petals like this one. You can, like I said, do your petals however you want. As long as they're about an inch long, 3/4 to 1 inch long, you'll be set. All right, now we gotta start laying them in place. And the reason I didn't attach my flower centers yet is we might need to shift our flowers. I think that this is a pretty good layout, but if it starts to not look good, then we'll pick everything back up and move it. So the only thing that's permanent right now are the stuff we glued. So the leaves, the vase, and the shadow on the tabletop. All right, so I'm gonna use the tweezers to do this so that y'all can see what I'm doing. And let's see, I think I'm gonna try putting my petals underneath. And we're gonna end up with a lot of overlap here, so that's okay. Overlap is good. We want our petals to be overlapping the vase and the leaves and outside the edges. In fact, I'm gonna move this because if I know that that's where I want my flower centers, I'll be able to work a little bit more easily without that mat on there just now. All right, let's get one of these next. I like to alternate my petals. Spread the love. If you want, you can do one flower from each fabric. So, you know, the orange fabric would be all this flower, and my yellow fabric would be all this flower, and then the red one would be all down here. However you want to do it is fine. I like to mix and match within each flower. So that's what I'm going to do today. And once we get all of these petals in place, we will go back through with the little applicator and apply the glue the same way we did the leaves. All right, we're looking pretty good here so far. And I'm not sure how well you can see this on the video. I had ganged up my fabric and cut like 4 petals at a time or 3 petals at a time. I did this the same way that I cut the vase. I just folded the fabrics over and then cut out one shape, but it cut through like 2, 3, or 4 layers of fabric at a time. If you want to speed up your cutting, you can do that too. Otherwise, cutting them one at a time, there's nothing wrong with that. All right, back to the orange. Oop, I'm having trouble getting it under there. There we go. Now, some of your fabrics are going to have a back and some will not. It all depends on what you get in your box. So batik fabrics, their pattern comes from dye. Like what they look like comes from dye that goes all the way through the fabric. So if I show you this batik fabric, you can see that there's no difference in color from one side to the other. It looks just as vibrant on both sides of the material. But if we look at this orange, it's very vibrant on this side, and you can see where I've cut all the all the petals out of the bottom. So it's very vibrant on this side, but if we turn it over, it kind of is a little bit white. And it's hard to see on the video, but if I fold it in half like this, you can see how this area, which is the front, is a lot more vibrant. This is just kind of toned back a little bit. And so you will be able to see that on your own fabrics. And you will probably want to make sure that the front side of the fabric is facing up if it has a front. But if you decide that you like the back better, then make sure the back faces up. It's more important to be consistent than to, do it one way over another. So whichever way you like best, do that. I am making sure that the fronts of all of my fabrics are facing up when I put these petals in place. All right. And now for an orange petal. Good. Back to a red petal. You can see why you'll need a lot of petals. We're using a bunch of them here. And if you get to this point where you're putting petals in and it's starting to be hard to handle this flower center, you can lift it up and put it to the side. With your petals in place, you're going to know where the middle of the flower is supposed to be. So this might be a little easier for you to lay down your petals. And one like that. I'm not going to try and squeeze in another orange petal. We'll start with orange on another flower, and that will give us, that's a good look. Good. Let's check it with our mat. Make sure everything's looking good. Yeah, I'm liking that. I'm liking that a lot. But what it means is that these centers need to shift out a little bit, because otherwise their petals are going to be overlapping this flower a little bit too much. So we're going to bump them like that, and a good chunk of their petals will be going off the page. That's fine. That's a-okay, not a problem. So we're going to do that, and I am going to go ahead and glue these down, and then we'll get started putting the other two flowers together. Let's see. Because I know where that center is going to be, I'm going to do a good job gluing the underside of this center in the hopes that it will help hold down all of these other petals, and then I can go around with the applicator and just hit the tips. So let's see. I'm going to glue this, put the glue on it right here on my picture. For you guys, I would advise doing that not on your picture, just for safety, but I want you to be able to see on the camera what I'm doing. So I'm going to just try and be really careful here to not glue my tabletop accidentally. Trying to get it all the way to the edge without actually going over, because like I said, I don't want to glue the tabletop fabric. Good. We're going to flip that back in place. Nice. Poke it down to hold it, let it start gluing in place there. Excellent. All right, let's glue these petals. Let's just fold up the tip like we did with the leaves. Get a little bit under there. Good. And you just need a dab. You don't need a whole lot, especially with that center holding our petals in place. Going right along. Let's do these up here. Almost. 2 left to go. Let's do them at the same time. 1 and 2. Boom, all done. All right, so 1 flower has been successfully anchored in place. Let's get started on the next one. All right, so I started with this color last time. I'm going to start with this color. Make sure I've only got one here. Can you see the difference more clearly? So this petal, there's the front and there's the back. It's pretty obvious which the color difference on these two. So just make sure you're picking the right one. Now I want to make sure that I don't have the same color petals touching if I can avoid it. It'll just help them stand apart from each other. So I'm going to make sure that this red one goes here. And we'll do that. So that way the red is touching the orange. Just a little personal preference that I have. Now we'll go orange. Back to one of these reds. And yellow. Get all of these in here. All right, let's check on the mat, how I'm doing. A good bit's gonna be going off the edge. Yeah, that's looking just fine. I like that quite a bit, actually. All right, I'm gonna keep going with the other half of the flower. And just to speed things up, I'm gonna move my center off to the side, just so I can lay these down a little easier. Yellow, orange, getting there, I think 2 or 3 more. Red, well, I might be able to fit 2. Let's put it bright yellow because it's going to be touching that red one. Well, actually, no, let's go ahead and put in another petal. Move these, shuffle them up a little bit. More orange, just like that. Yeah, I think that looks good. All right, let's see. We got our center. Yep, let's check it with the mat, make sure everything looks good, and then we'll glue it in place. Yep, that looks pretty good. That looks pretty good. So let's do the same thing we did with the other one. We're gonna glue this center and let it kind of hold everything in place. And then we'll go around and glue the petals around the side. So once again, I would have a safe gluing surface to do this because this is kind of dangerous. I don't want to glue my tabletop, but I also want y'all to see what I'm doing on the camera, so I'm just trying to be careful. All right, just like that. Make sure my applicator doesn't roll away. And we're gonna put this down. Yep. Just like that. There we go. Patted in place. And I can feel all those other petals under the edge. So when you're doing your own flowers, if you want to glue the centers in place and then put the petals on top, that's okay too. There's no, either way, you can do what I'm doing and have the petals tucked under the centers, or you can have the petals overlap your centers. It's really up to you what way you want to do it. All right, I need to squirt some more glue over here because I've been using up my little pile, and then we'll get started on these petals. All right, just like before, my glue is going to start running off my page. That's no good. All right, let's put a dab. And this one, we'll put a dab. Oops, flopped forward. this one. Get some under there. Good. Under here. There. And you don't need a lot. Just a little bit will do. Just a dab. Isn't that from a butter commercial? A dab will do ya? Maybe sour cream. Maybe something from my childhood. All right. I can't get under here. Let's see, did I do this one? Yeah, did not do this one. Oh geez, I should have been using the tweezers all along. That was way easier than trying to fat finger it. All right, here we go. Yep, good. And I think that's the last one. Did we do this one? Yeah, okay. Good. One more flower and we will be done with step 3. So let's check it. Yep, still looking good. Looking more gorgeous by the second. Let's start getting some petals in. On this last one, let's see, I started with the other 2 fabrics, so we're going to start with this orange fabric next. Let's start up. Actually, I'm going to start over here because I want to make sure an orange overlaps the red. So we do orange, and then we'll do, let's do this. Oop, this is going to make a yellow touch. Oh well. It happens. And then a red. Ooh, that's a nice one. I like that one. All right, I'm going to check it, and if this looks good, I'm going to remove the center, just like we did before, and continue placing petals. Yeah, I think that's looking good. So let's pop that center off, and we're gonna keep going here. Where were we? Orange. Like that. And did I do that right? No. Oh, this was supposed to be the, well, it doesn't matter. I was trying to alternate. So like orange, yellow, red, and I have red, yellow, red, orange. It's okay. It doesn't matter. The point is to put in a variety of these colors to mix and match. And I'm going to leave it. Oh, there's a good yellow one. All right, and we'll do red. If I can get these separated. There we go. Because I cut multiple at the same time, they kind of stick. It's hard to separate them out sometimes. All right, there, let's get another yellow. Yeah, there we go. There, and a red. Orange. Yellow. Oh, and it looks like one more red is gonna do it for us. Let's get a really good one. Here we go. When I say a really good one, I'm looking at how much pattern is on it. I like the petals that have more pattern from the fabric visible. All right, let's check with the mat. Yep, that's gonna work. That's gonna be real good. So 3 out of 3. We're going to put some glue on the back of this center. Just like that. Let's get it in place. poke it down. All right, y'all know what's next. We gotta glue down these petals. I'm gonna use the tweezers because that's way easier than trying to fat finger it. There we go. Oops. And then I get it on my tweezers. I don't want it on my tweezers. They need to stay clean or we're gonna end up with a mess. Okay. Let's try the next one. All right, good so far. We'll do 2 at a time, maybe. Oh, I don't want to get it on my tweezers. Okay. Yeah, that was all right. That was okay. I'm not used to actually having liquid glue. This is a little different for me. The glue that I usually use comes as it's called fusible web, but it looks like you know the spider web stuff that you can get at Halloween to put fake spider webs around your house? It kind of looks like that, except it's flat in a sheet. But it looks like webbing. And it's a heat sensitive glue, and so I can put it on the back of my fabric, and then when I iron my fabric it melts the glue, and that's what holds it in place. So I don't usually use liquid stitch for anything, or for my regular work, I should say, like the 2 quilts hanging behind me, or one behind and one beside me right now. I beat up my tweezers again. Wipe them off. I do use these tweezers in my regular work though. These things are great. Putting down tiny pieces is hard to do with fingers. The tweezers really help. All right, I think we got one more petal here. Yep, last but not least. All right, and then before, did I do this one? Yeah, that feels anchored down. All right, here is our mat. What a happy little flower arrangement. All right, so before we can call the petals quits, there's one more thing we need to do with them. We need to put a couple down here on the tabletop. And to do that, I'm going to pick one of these batiks that has a really good pattern. Ooh, this is kind of nice. I like that one. So let's see. We're going to drop 2 of them down here. There's one. Actually, I take that back. I want a red one. Let's put that over here. One there, and let's get one of these yellow. See if I can get a nice, here's a good one. We're going to drop 2 of them. We're going to put them down here just like that. Like they fell off. Like they fell off the flowers up top. So the reason that we're doing this, the reason we're putting 2 of those petals down there is for composition. Because without them there, all of our color, all of our warm color is in the top half of the picture. And then there's nothing down here. And putting these 2 dropped little petals, it just helps move the color around a little bit. You can put them like that. You could put one on each side. That's actually not too bad either. I like that. You could do just one. You could do more. You make the decision on your own artwork. But for me, I think I'm going to do that. Just like that. And then let's glue them in place. And this will do it for step 3. There's only one other thing that we need to do before we can call this picture finished. All right, 1 and 2 Just like that. All right. That's step 3. That does it for the petals. Nothing else to do for petals. So to finish off this picture, we've got one last thing to do, and that is pollen. What is pollen? Well, pollen in real flowers is how they reproduce, but for us, pollen is going to be just little blips of color that are going to kind of spice this thing up a bit. So to make your pollen, I'm going to make my pollen out of this flower center print. You can make your pollen out of one or more of the petal fabrics. It's up to you which ones you want. But I'm going to snip that off a little bit. I'm going to fold this over a good bit. So I've got it folded over 4 times now. And I'm just going to make a mess. I'm just going to cut up random shapes. Random little triangles. And we don't want them very big. So smaller is good. Try and make triangles or rectangles. And don't make them like with parallel sides. We want wonky little shapes. The wonkier, the better. Yeah. Here we go. And I'm going to cut a bunch and then just pick the ones I like. All right, those last 2, this is almost too big. We want like really tiny ones. And your fingers are going to get glue on them for this step. Nothing we can do about that. It's all for the art. Do it for the art. All right, let me cut out one more batch here, and then we'll see what we got. All right. So let me move my little pile of pollen off to the edge here. Okay. Now, once again, front or back of the fabric, if your fabric has a front or back, you will be able to tell easily. But we're just going to make little clusters. Now keep in mind there's no glue on this. We're testing it out for right now, but we want to make little clusters of color floating around the picture. And it's just going to spice it up a little bit. Look how much more fun that is already. And I like to do groups of 3, just for, again, for good composition. You can overlap your petals, you can overlap the leaves. We're just gonna spice things up a little bit. You can also do individuals, like just one little pollen here and there. Odd numbers are better for composition, so that's why I like to do the odd numbers. And I think I'm going to call that good. That's all we need. Look at how much more fun that is. Just adding little blips of color, little pollen. All right, now we got to glue it. Let me move my little cluster of pollen goop off to the side. And for these, I'm going to, once again, pick them up with my tweezers so y'all can see what I'm doing. Just a little dab on the back, put it back in place. And I'm going to do my best to not get glue on my tweezer tips, if I can help it. And there we go. You don't need a lot. You don't need full coverage, as it were. Whoops, that one jumped away on me. Okay. And don't worry about glue coming out the side. It will dry clear, so you won't see it once it's all dried. And you're not going to be able to help it on these little pieces anyway, so just do your best. They're too small to really keep the glue totally contained. This is a weird experience for me. I don't usually use the tweezers in this hand. I'm right-handed, and so my tweezers are usually in my right hand. So that's why I'm kind of going slow here. Oh, this is hard. Oh, I had that one upside down. All right. That's okay. There we go. All right. Let's see, I don't think I did these yet. One more here. Then I think I've got a little bit more to do. Uh-oh. I totally just lost where that one came from. Oops. All right, well, I'm going to put it up here. I'm going to overlap this leaf just like that. Just a little bit. Okay, we've got this one down here. And 3 to go, and then we'll be done. All right, 1, 2, 3. Just like that. And that is it. We are done. That is our fabric flower arrangement. And it has a mat, so it's ready to go. This is a standard mat, so you don't need a special frame. You ought to be able to get an off-the-shelf frame for it at a Michael's or Joann's. And it's ready to go. So I hope you enjoyed this project. I hope that you enjoy working with fabric as much as I do, which is a lot. And I hope y'all have a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks for watching.